Your alarm goes off at 6 a.m. You roll over, grab your meter, prick your finger. You stare at that number. You did not eat anything wrong last night. Dinner was grilled salmon and vegetables. No dessert. No cheating. You went to bed at 112. So where did those extra 46 points come from? They came from your liver, while you were sleeping. And here is the thing nobody tells you about blood sugar after 60. The biggest threat to your morning numbers is not what you eat for dinner. It is what your liver does at 2 a.m. when you have no idea it is happening. Today I am going to walk you through 7 specific seeds, ranked from good to extraordinary, based on what the clinical research actually shows they do to your blood sugar while you sleep. Each one works on a different mechanism. Each one is backed by published peer-reviewed science. And every single one costs less than $1 a week. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why your morning numbers spike, which seeds address that specific problem, how to use each one, and how to build a simple nightly routine starting this week. This is Better Health Seniors. And this is the video your morning meter has been waiting for. Before I get into the 7 seeds, I need you to understand one thing. Because without this, the list will not make complete sense. Your body does not shut down when you fall asleep. It runs a maintenance program. And a central part of that program involves your liver doing something called hepatic glucose production. Here is the simplest way I can explain it. Think of your liver like a backup generator. When the power goes out, meaning when you stop eating and go to sleep, the generator kicks on. It starts producing glucose on its own and releasing it into your bloodstream. This is actually a survival mechanism. Its job is to keep your brain fed, your organs running, and your body functioning through 7 or 8 hours without food. At 30 years old, that generator has a thermostat. It produces just enough glucose to keep you stable through the night. But after 60, especially if you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, that thermostat breaks. The generator runs too hot. It produces far more glucose than your body needs. And at the same time, your muscles, which used to absorb that excess sugar efficiently, have lost mass and become less responsive to insulin. The result is that glucose just circulates. It builds up, and when you wake up and test, you see a number that makes no sense given how carefully you ate the night before. This overnight liver overproduction is called the dawn phenomenon, and it is one of the most poorly explained mechanisms in blood sugar management. Most conversations focus on what you eat and when you exercise. Almost nobody talks about what your liver is doing at 3 a.m. That is exactly where these 7 seeds come in. Not because they are magic, because specific compounds inside these seeds target the precise biological mechanisms that drive your overnight glucose up. Some slow the liver output directly. Some create a gel barrier that controls how fast glucose reaches your bloodstream. Some improve insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. And some do multiple things at once. Understanding that is what makes this list make sense. So let us start. Number 7. Sunflower seeds. I know what you were thinking. Sunflower seeds are a baseball stadium snack. Stay with me for a moment because there is a reason these belong on a blood sugar list, and it comes down to 2 specific compounds. The first is magnesium. 1 ounce of raw sunflower seeds, which is about a small handful or roughly 2 tablespoons, delivers approximately 91 milligrams of magnesium. That is around 22% of your daily requirement from a single small serving. Here is why magnesium matters specifically at night. Magnesium is the mineral that allows insulin receptors on your cells to function properly. When your body is low in magnesium, insulin arrives at the cell and the receptor does not respond correctly. The glucose cannot get inside. It stays in your blood. Your meter reads high. A large prospective study published in Diabetes Care followed over 4,000 participants and found that higher magnesium intake was significantly associated with lower fasting insulin levels and improved insulin sensitivity. A separate meta-analysis published in Nutrients in 2021 confirmed that magnesium supplementation produced meaningful reductions in fasting blood glucose in people with type 2 diabetes, with the effect being most pronounced in those who started with lower magnesium levels. After 60, magnesium deficiency is extremely common. Studies estimate that up to 45% of older Americans do not get adequate magnesium from their diet. And many common medications, including diuretics, proton pump inhibitors, and some diabetes drugs, deplete magnesium further. The second compound in sunflower seeds worth knowing about is chlorogenic acid. This is the same antioxidant found in high concentrations in green coffee beans, and it works by inhibiting an enzyme in the liver called glucose 6-phosphatase. That enzyme is directly involved in the liver's overnight glucose release process. Reducing its activity means the generator runs slightly cooler. Sunflower seeds are a solid baseline. They are not the most powerful thing on this list, but they earn their place at number 7 as an easy, affordable, accessible addition to your evening routine. How to use them? Buy raw unsalted sunflower seed kernels, already shelled. Measure out 1 ounce, about 2 tablespoons. Eat them 90 minutes before bed. You can add them to a small bowl of plain Greek yogurt or eat them on their own. Do not buy the salted roasted varieties because excessive sodium creates its own problems for blood pressure and circulation overnight. Number 6. Hemp seeds. Before anyone leaves a comment, let me address this directly. Hemp seeds contain 0 THC. 0. They are sold at Costco, Walmart, and every major grocery store in the country. They are legal in all 50 states. They are simply seeds with a remarkable nutritional profile. What makes hemp seeds relevant to overnight blood sugar is their protein content and their fatty acid ratio. Hemp seeds deliver approximately 31 grams of complete protein per 100 grams. Complete protein means they contain all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce on its own. That is rare for a plant source. Most plant proteins are missing at least 1 essential amino acid. Why does protein matter for overnight blood sugar? Because protein consumption at your last meal triggers the release of a hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1, abbreviated GLP-1. You may have heard this term recently because it is the same pathway that newer diabetes medications like semaglutide target. GLP-1 does 2 things that directly affect your overnight glucose. First, it slows gastric emptying, meaning your stomach processes the food from your last meal more gradually. Glucose enters your bloodstream as a slow trickle rather than a flood. Second, GLP-1 suppresses glucagon secretion. Glucagon is the hormone that signals your liver to release glucose. Less glucagon means the liver generator gets a quieter signal overnight. The fatty acid profile of hemp seeds is also worth understanding. Hemp seeds have a naturally occurring omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of approximately 3:1, which nutritional researchers consider close to ideal for managing systemic inflammation. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry confirmed this ratio and its relevance to inflammatory marker reduction. Why does inflammation matter for blood sugar? Because chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the primary drivers of insulin resistance. It damages the signaling pathways that allow insulin to do its job at the cellular level. Reducing inflammation does not produce an overnight change in your glucose numbers, but over weeks and months it addresses one of the root causes of why insulin stops working effectively after 60. How to use them? 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds added to your evening meal. They require no preparation, no soaking, no grinding. The flavor is mild, similar to pine nuts. You can add them to yogurt, a salad, or simply stir them into warm water. Eat them with dinner rather than right before bed to give the GLP-1 response time to build. Number 5. Pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are well known in the senior health community for their magnesium content. 1 ounce provides about 150 milligrams, which is roughly 37% of the daily recommended amount. That alone is significant for the reasons I described with sunflower seeds. But I am placing pumpkin seeds at number 5 not for their magnesium. For something most people have never heard of. Pumpkin seeds contain a compound called D-chiroinositol. This compound has been studied for its ability to mimic certain actions of insulin at the cellular level. It works through a pathway called the phosphatidylinositol signaling system, which is involved in how cells respond to insulin and take up glucose. A randomized controlled trial published in Nutrition Research examined the effect of pumpkin seed addition to a high-carbohydrate meal on postprandial blood glucose in participants with type 2 diabetes. The study found that adding pumpkin seeds reduced the post-meal glucose rise by approximately 35% compared to the same meal without seeds. That 35% reduction matters specifically for overnight blood sugar because of a mechanism called the first-phase glucose curve. Whatever you eat for your last meal before bed determines your blood sugar trajectory for the first 3 to 4 hours of sleep. If that meal produces a sharp glucose spike, your body overcompensates with insulin, your blood sugar drops, and then your liver interprets that drop as a signal to release more glucose. That overcompensation is part of what drives elevated morning numbers. If your last meal produces a flatter glucose curve, your liver stays calmer overnight. Pumpkin seeds help flatten that curve. How to use them? 1 ounce of raw pumpkin seeds, the dark green flat variety called pepitas, eaten with your evening meal. If you want to lightly roast them yourself, keep the temperature under 170 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes with a small amount of sea salt. Avoid the pre-salted commercial roasted varieties. Number 4. Chia seeds. Chia seeds appear frequently in senior health content, usually for their fiber content or their omega-3 fatty acids. But the reason they make this list at number 4 is more specific than general fiber benefits, and it comes down to a property most people have never considered. When chia seeds are soaked in water, they absorb roughly 10 to 12 times their weight and form a thick gel. That gel, when consumed before bed, does not just sit in your stomach. Research shows it coats the lining of the upper small intestine, creating a physical barrier between the glucose in your digestive tract and the intestinal wall where absorption occurs. This slows how quickly glucose passes from your gut into your bloodstream. The critical finding for overnight blood sugar is this: that gel does not dissolve in 2 hours. Studies have documented that chia seed gel persists in the gut for 4 to 6 hours after consumption. So if you eat soaked chia seeds at 8:30 p.m., the gel barrier is still working at 2 a.m., which is precisely when your liver begins its overnight production cycle. Whatever glucose is still being processed from your evening meal is being released slowly rather than all at once, which reduces the signal that tells your liver to compensate with additional glucose output. A meta-analysis of 8 randomized controlled trials published in Nutrition Reviews in 2025 examined chia seed supplementation and found significant reductions in systolic blood pressure of over 7 points and diastolic of 6 points. The same review found modest but present reductions in fasting blood glucose. The blood pressure finding matters for overnight glucose management because better vascular function improves the efficiency with which your body clears circulating glucose from the bloodstream during sleep. I want to be transparent with you about the evidence here. The direct effect of chia seeds on fasting blood glucose is real but modest in most studies. Some trials show more meaningful reductions, and some show minimal change. The strongest and most consistent finding is the gel barrier mechanism and its effect on post-meal glucose curves rather than a direct suppression of liver output. That is why chia seeds are at number 4 rather than higher. The mechanism is solid and well documented. The effect specifically on overnight fasting numbers is meaningful but not the most powerful on this list. How to use them? 2 tablespoons of chia seeds and half a cup of water. Let them soak for at least 20 minutes. They will form a thick gel, which some people find off-putting in texture. If that is you, stir the soaked chia into plain, unsweetened yogurt. Eat it approximately 90 minutes before bed. Do not eat chia seeds dry. The gel formation only happens with adequate hydration, and dry seeds can actually slow absorption of medications and nutrients if taken close to other things. Number 3. Ground flaxseed. I am emphasizing the word ground because it is the most important word on this entire list. Whole flax seeds pass through your digestive tract largely intact. The hull is too hard for your body to break down efficiently. You do not absorb the beneficial compounds. You need ground flaxseed to access what makes this seed clinically significant. Flaxseed contains a class of compounds called lignans, specifically one called secoisolarisuresinol diglucoside, or SDG. This compound activates a cellular receptor called PPAR-gamma. That receptor, when activated, increases insulin sensitivity in muscle cells and fat cells. It helps your cells respond more readily to whatever insulin is circulating in your blood. PPAR-gamma is the same receptor targeted by a class of prescription diabetes medications called thiazolidinediones, which includes the drug pioglitazone. Those medications cost significantly more than a bag of flaxseed. The mechanism is not identical, but the receptor pathway is the same. A meta-analysis of 25 randomized placebo-controlled trials published in Nutrition Reviews in 2018 found that whole flaxseed supplementation significantly reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of approximately 2.94 milligrams per deciliter. It also significantly reduced insulin levels and improved HOMA-IR, which is the standard clinical measure of insulin resistance. These findings held across multiple independent research groups and diverse patient populations. One important finding from that meta-analysis is worth understanding. The glucose-lowering effect was statistically significant only in studies lasting 12 weeks or longer. This means flaxseed does not produce a dramatic overnight change the first time you eat it. It works through cumulative, compounding improvement in insulin sensitivity over weeks and months. You are recalibrating the system rather than applying a single acute intervention. Flaxseed also contains mucilage, a soluble fiber that forms a viscous gel similar to chia seeds when it contacts liquid in the digestive tract. This gel binds to bile acids in the intestine. When bile acids are bound and removed, your liver has to synthesize new ones. That synthesis process uses cholesterol from the bloodstream, which is why flaxseed consistently reduces LDL cholesterol in clinical trials. But the bile acid diversion also keeps your liver partially occupied with something other than glucose production during the overnight window. How to use them? Buy whole flax seeds and grind them yourself in a coffee grinder. 10 seconds of pulsing is all it takes. Pre-ground flaxseed oxidizes quickly and loses potency. Store the ground flaxseed in the freezer in a sealed container. 2 tablespoons stirred into warm water or mixed into yogurt, taken with dinner or up to 2 hours before bed. A 2-pound bag of whole flax seeds costs approximately $4 at most grocery stores and lasts 6 weeks or more. Number 2. Fenugreek seeds. Open a bag of fenugreek seeds and you will notice the smell immediately. Warm, slightly sweet, reminiscent of maple syrup. That aroma comes from a compound called sotalone. But the therapeutic activity is not in the aroma. It is in an amino acid called 4-hydroxyisoleucine. This compound is found in meaningful concentrations almost exclusively in fenugreek. And what it does is genuinely remarkable in the context of overnight blood sugar management. 4-hydroxyisoleucine directly stimulates insulin secretion from the pancreatic beta cells. But here is the critical distinction. It only does this when blood glucose is elevated. When blood sugar is at normal levels, the compound sits essentially inactive. It does not stimulate insulin release when insulin is not needed. This property is called glucose-responsive or glucose-dependent insulin stimulation. It is a meaningful distinction from how certain diabetes medications work. Sulfonylureas, a common class of diabetes drugs including glipizide and glibenclamide, force your pancreas to release insulin regardless of what your blood glucose is doing. That is why they can cause dangerous nighttime hypoglycemia, a blood sugar drop while you are asleep that can cause sweating, confusion, and in serious cases, seizure or unconsciousness. 4-hydroxyisoleucine does not carry that risk in the same way because it works proportionally. More glucose present means more insulin stimulated. Normal glucose and the compound becomes largely inactive. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in Annals of Medicine and Surgery in 2024, covering randomized controlled trials with 626 diabetic participants, found that fenugreek powder significantly reduced fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, and postprandial glucose levels, with no significant adverse effects reported across the trials. The second mechanism of fenugreek works completely differently. Fenugreek seeds are approximately 45% soluble fiber by weight. The specific fiber is called galactomannan. When fenugreek seeds are soaked overnight in room temperature water, the galactomannan swells and forms an extremely viscous gel. This gel coats the stomach lining and dramatically slows gastric emptying, meaning the food from your last meal is processed gradually over hours rather than quickly. Glucose enters the bloodstream slowly, which produces a flatter curve and keeps your liver calmer overnight. How to use them? Soak 1 tablespoon of fenugreek seeds in a 1/4 cup of room temperature water the night before. In the evening, approximately 90 minutes before bed, drink the soaking water and eat the softened seeds. The soaking reduces bitterness significantly. If the texture still bothers you, grind the dry seeds into a fine powder first and mix half a teaspoon into warm water. Either method activates both mechanisms. You can find whole fenugreek seeds at Indian grocery stores or health food stores for approximately $2 per bag. One important caution with fenugreek. If you are currently taking insulin or sulfonylurea medications like glipizide, Speak with your doctor before adding fenugreek to your routine, because fenugreek directly stimulates insulin release. Combining it with medications that also force insulin release can push blood sugar dangerously low overnight. This is not a reason to avoid fenugreek. It is a reason to have a conversation with your doctor first and to monitor your numbers carefully. Number 1. Black seed, also called Nigella sativa or black cumin. The reason black seed is number 1 on this list is not because it is exotic or trendy. It is because the clinical evidence across multiple independent meta-analyses shows it addresses the overnight blood sugar problem at its source in a way nothing else on this list can match. Remember the liver generator I described at the beginning? The overactive glucose production that happens between 2 and 4 a.m. The primary active compound in black seed, called thymoquinone, targets that generator directly. Thymoquinone reduces hepatic glucose production. It works on the liver's internal glucose manufacturing pathway, inhibiting the enzymes involved in gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis, which are the 2 processes by which your liver creates and releases glucose during fasting. This is a direct, targeted mechanism. It does not work through fiber. It does not work through insulin stimulation. It goes to the source and dials down the output. A meta-analysis of 16 randomized controlled trials published in Complementary Therapies in Medicine in 2025 found that black seed supplementation reduced fasting blood glucose by an average of 21.43 milligrams per deciliter and reduced HbA1c by 0.44%. Those are clinically meaningful numbers. A reduction of 21 points in fasting glucose is the difference that often determines whether a doctor adjusts your medication upward or tells you that whatever you are doing is working. But thymoquinone does not stop at the liver. A separate meta-analysis published in Frontiers in Nutrition in 2022 found that black seed supplementation significantly reduced C-reactive protein, which is the standard clinical marker for systemic inflammation. Elevated CRP is directly associated with worsening insulin resistance. Inflammation damages the signaling pathways that allow insulin to interact with receptors on your cells. Black seed addresses that inflammation at the same time it is working on the liver. And a third mechanism. Thymoquinone has been shown in cell and animal studies and confirmed in several human trials to protect pancreatic beta cells from oxidative damage. After 60, your beta cells, the cells in your pancreas responsible for producing insulin, are under ongoing stress from free radicals and oxidative compounds. Protecting those cells from damage helps preserve your insulin-producing capacity over time. 3 mechanisms running simultaneously. Direct suppression of liver glucose output. Reduction of the inflammation driving insulin resistance. Protection of the cells that produce insulin. All working through the hours when you are asleep. That is why black seed is number 1. How to use it. 2 grams per day, which is approximately half a teaspoon of ground black seed. Mix it into a tablespoon of raw honey and eat it directly, or stir it into warm water. Take it 60 to 90 minutes before bed. The flavor is distinctive, peppery, slightly bitter, and earthy. Some people enjoy it. Others prefer to mix it into plain yogurt to soften the taste. A 1-pound bag of whole black seeds costs approximately $9 online and lasts over 2 months at this daily dose. If you are on blood thinners, specifically warfarin, talk to your doctor before starting black seed. Thymoquinone has mild antiplatelet properties, and your doctor may want to adjust your INR monitoring. This is not a reason to avoid it. It is a reason to communicate openly. Now let me give you a simple practical protocol. Because I do not want you to finish this video, go buy 7 bags of seeds, and end up overwhelmed and doing nothing. Start tonight with 1 seed. The easiest and most accessible starting point is ground flaxseed. 2 tablespoons mixed into warm water or yogurt, taken with dinner or within 2 hours of bed. Do this every night for 7 days, and check your fasting blood sugar every morning. Write the numbers down. Look for a trend. In week 2, add black seed. Half a teaspoon of ground black seed mixed with a teaspoon of raw honey, taken 60 minutes before bed. Continue the flaxseed with dinner. You now have 2 mechanisms working. Flaxseed improving insulin sensitivity through PPAR gamma activation over time. Black seed directly reducing liver glucose output overnight. In week 3, add soaked chia seeds. 2 tablespoons soaked in half a cup of water for 20 minutes, eaten 90 minutes before bed. Now you have the gel barrier working alongside the other two mechanisms. After 3 weeks, compare your morning numbers to your week 1 baseline. Look at the trend across multiple days, not individual readings. And every time you add something new, tell your doctor. Bring your numbers. Show them what you are doing. The research behind these seeds is published in peer-reviewed medical journals. You are not doing something fringe. You are applying clinical evidence to your daily routine. One final note. Everything I covered today addresses the food and seed side of overnight blood sugar. But the dawn phenomenon has layers beyond nutrition. Your cortisol cycle, your sleep quality, your physical activity timing, the medications you take and when you take them, all of these interact with the overnight glucose system. Managing morning numbers will usually requires addressing more than one factor at a time. But starting with seeds is one of the most practical, low-risk, evidence-based first steps available to you. And the 3-seed protocol I just described, flaxseed, black seed, and chia, covers 3 distinct biological mechanisms for under $2 a week combined. Now I want to hear from you. What is your fasting blood sugar number this morning? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video helped you understand something about your overnight numbers that you did not understand before, please share it with someone you know who is fighting the same battle every morning. Thank you for watching Better Health Seniors. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.